why spirituality doesn't work to attract women. And I want to start making a lot of videos again on this channel. And I've done a big pause. I'm in the Algarve in Portugal, in South Portugal, and I visited a lot of these events. I met a lot of women, also spiritual women, and there is an interesting thing. There's a couple of interesting things. So the first thing is that non-duality or spiritual awakening and abiding in the self leads you to neglecting the body, leads you to basically doing less and less and less and less and less, or like Eckhart Tolle would say, you cut out 80% of the decisions. And there's some interesting info to that. So most people are not awakened on this earth, in this planet. Like literally the most of the people are not awakened. And if they're not awakened, they are operating from survival and procreation and all the trauma that's lying on top of it, etc. And that for women, attraction is based on dominance, and dominance builds tension. And the tension, also sometimes from a narcissist, the tension, or from a psychopath, the tension is that which builds attraction, and kind of the sexual tension. And then when it's a lot of it, then women start to fantasize about it. Like, this guy is so dominant, it starts to fantasize about, being with him, sleeping with him, whatever. And the competition is super fierce nowadays with social media, etc. So what happens is that if you rest in non-duality, then you do not show dominance. As a non-dual being, you could say so, you will never show dominance. You actually show exactly the opposite of dominance. So as you rest, if I just rest here and just sit in awareness, it's not going to be attractive to anyone because it doesn't build tension. And without this dominance, without that tension, she will not feel sexual attraction. And what a lot of guys that will try to do is that they put on themselves, like, I don't know, like these things, like spiritual clothing and so forth, and they try to be like overtly spiritual in order to kind of like peacocking spiritual, so they'd kind of like attract women that way. And for some good-looking men, it works. So when they have these man buns and they're tall and they have nice, beautiful faces, then it works. But for spiritual men who are ugly, it doesn't work. Or who are, in comparison, uglier, it doesn't work. So the only way for a spiritual man to be attractive would be actually to go against his spirituality, is to be more dominant. And that's one of the super confusing things for a lot of guys out there. Like, how do they bring this together? How do they bring together, on the one side being super spiritual and on the other side still being attractive? And what you can do, of course, is go the Ramana Maharshi way. So you don't care even about attraction at all, which is probably one of the hardest things you could ever do in life, because that's literally your two major forces, biological forces, survival and procreation. It would be like saying don't breathe and don't procreate. And I'm sure some people try to go that way. I'm not sure it's the best way, because I don't believe that you can truly transcend that energy. I think it's always there. And it's part of your core vital energy that you need in life. So I think you have to be aware. I mean, one of the great things about YouTube and about being public with this information is that this information has never been shared before in the history of humankind. Maybe in some derivative way, but not in a clear, where the concept is super clear. Just like when I explained toxic metaframing, I'm the first one who started with the neologism of toxic metaframing, explaining a phenomenon that everybody knows, but nobody put a name to it. So this is the great benefit of being able to talk about this now, to show you how there's such a paradox of life in a lot of ways. And a lot of things are misunderstood, like the ego is misunderstood. So quite honestly, I cannot say which is the better way, to say like I go Ramana Maharshi way and just try to transcend, basically let go of everything, or if you just accept that dominance is a big part of attraction, and that you have to employ it. And one example, for example, Owens, the pickup artist Owens, he basically does something similar. So he's a fan of Eckhart Tolle, but in a sense, hi Thomas, in a sense, Owens, he basically employs exactly what I say. So one part is being super present, and the other part is actually being a narcissistic ass. So he's kind of like doing both. And then he talks about, for example, having such a strong frame, which is independent of any outside validation. That's basically his strongest teaching, that you have to have such a good frame that it's not dependent on outside validation. But those are all non-dual concepts. So you, in a way, you cannot be following Eckhart Tolle, and you cannot be following non-duality or Advaita Vedanta like Mooji, and at the same time be a pickup artist. It doesn't make sense. You would have to split it. So you would have to be, and you know where the split actually comes from, which is super interesting? The split actually comes from the belief that you're still the body and still giving the body so much attention. Obviously, if you have a full enlightenment and you're aware that you're not the body, then there is no need to figure out these things, like to have a concept of pickup, for example. But my brain works this way, that I recognize patterns just naturally in life, and then I just share them. So, and one of these patterns that I recognized is that in every single interaction with a woman, in every single detail with a woman, you have to look at, is this submissive or is this dominant? And I mean non-toxic dominance. So, for example, I gave already uploading a video on this part. So, for example, let's say she's excited to see you, and you respond with even higher excitement and over-explanation or oversharing. Oversharing is also one of these problems. Then you immediately fall into submissiveness in her view. And that's the thing. It's not about what you think is dominant. This is something that I also had to learn. It's not about what you think is dominant, but what she perceives as dominant. That means what in her frame creates sexual tension through dominance, not what you think it does. I give you an example where a lot of guys can confuse it. For example, if a woman is super excited to see me and I say, hey, let's make a trip to a restaurant 1 hour from here, I'll pick you up and we'll just go there. The man assumes I'm taking the lead and I'm taking the initiative. So you're like, I'm being the dominant one, I'm being the leader. But that's actually not how it works. You're actually, from her side, seeing it from her side, you're actually being submissive, because you're already investing, you're already deciding to invest into the relationship without knowing her. So I'm talking about at the very beginning. So what you have to do is actually minimize your effort to absolute minimum, and she has to comply into basically your frame, into your reality. And this is what also Owens in a way teaches. And I was like, I made the mistake so often and so clear and so obvious. Now I can speak about it, that it's just become super obvious that it's how it works. And when I have to also explain something. Although I'm 47, it's just this year, 2026, and maybe a little bit of end of last year, that I've been truly putting my mind towards this whole problem. Because when I was younger, I was super busy with other stuff. So when I was, let's say, between 15 years old and 30 years old, I was busy trying to build, different companies and ideas and so forth. I never bothered about women. That's why also I lost my virginity with the 27. And then slowly I started to have a little bit of success on internet dating, but not much. And then I became a tantra masseur, and that was crazy. And then after that, after I stopped being a tantra masseur, I realized like I have zero success with women. Of course, there was COVID and stuff like that, but then after that, I had like zero success. And I was like, and I kind of ignored it because 4 or 5 years I was doing van life, so I wasn't thinking about. I was frustrated, but I wasn't putting my mind to it. I wasn't looking like, where do I go wrong? Where do women go wrong, and so forth. And just the last month, like let's say 4 to 5 to 6 months, I've been really starting to look at it. And now a lot of the conclusions, a lot of the patterns that I recognized in myself and in society are actually being taught also by some of the top pickup and dating coaches in the world. So I recognize kind of like the same things. And I was like, okay, that makes it very clear that that is how it is. And there's another guy who I forgot the name. If I remember it, I will tell you. He's also like a pickup guy or like a dating coach. And I almost everything that he says, I completely see it how it's in real life. He's absolutely right. And because I went through exactly the same things. And what's super hard, and I think this is where it gets super tricky, is if you have very few options and suddenly you have an option, and you're also kind of like me, an optimistic guy that loves to have fun, that loves to just have. When I wake up in the morning, I'm in a good mood. Most people are not. I'm in a really good mood when I wake up in the morning. I'm optimistic. I'm like excited what the day brings and so forth. Even in my van life, even if there's no plan to do anything or whatever. And what I noticed is that women don't like that. And the women don't like it not because they don't like a nice, confident, optimistic guy. The reason they dislike it is for a completely different reason than you think. It's not because they don't like you laughing and enjoying your time. It's because their interpretation of that energy is overinvestment and submissiveness. And that's something I never understood before. And now the question is, do you want to even be that way just in order to be attractive to a woman? And that's a big question mark. And the funny thing is that if that's your natural way of being, like I am, then I do have to change my behavior in order to be attractive. And here comes the problem. It's literally with every woman. There is almost no exception. And you could also, if you go the Ramana Maharshi way, and you're just like, okay, now I'm just super aware of the now and that's it, then you have to completely drop the idea of ever being with a woman again. And I'm not sure I'm ready to do that, to be quite honest. But I think there's so much truth and so much interesting stuff about behind what these dating coaches say and what Owens, for example, says. And he says something super interesting, that you need to be in a frame where you're the shit. No matter what situation you're in, you're like, everybody would be lucky to be in your world. Whatever that world looks like, they would be super lucky to be in your world. And I think it comes down to a lot of the belief system. Like, for example, I play the guitar, okay? Of course, there are better guitar players than I am. And as long as we live in this comparative world, then we think we suck. Like, I don't have the money that other people have. I don't play as good guitar as other people do. My van is not as cleaned as someone else's van. People have houses. I don't have a house. So there's an endless list of comparisons. The guy is taller, the guy is more muscular, whatever. There's an endless options for comparison. And what Owens is basically saying, that although these options for comparison there are, you have to find a different source for your own inner validation without needing external validation to have this very strong frame. And that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. But how does it fit with the non-duality? I don't know, to be quite honest. I don't know. And I think you cannot half-ass either one. Like, either you're dominant and you're playing with that, or you're completely non-duality. I don't see how you can play both, because it's literally the opposites, you could almost say. And forget the idea, if you're a spiritual guy and you're not good looking, forget the idea that you will be attractive to women. You have absolutely zero chance. To a normal woman that is not spiritual, that is not awakened, that is, even if she's awakened, she will be still triggered by the same dynamics. Just like, even if you are spiritual and awakened, you still find beautiful women beautiful. So an awakened woman will find a dominant guy more attractive because he will create more tension. And the funny thing is, that's also something that I want to share. It happens in the tiniest of signals. Things that no normal guy would ever think about. Deal for a woman. That's why you kind of have to be, in a way, also ambiguous. So, for example, if you write her the first time, be like, "Hey, what's up? I hope you're having a nice day." And that's it. The moment you throw in something else, like, "I was thinking about you," or something like that, it has to be kind of like a totally non-desire frame, you could call it. Like, the moment you desire her, you're already going into submissive. And so even the first message needs to be non-submissive. It needs to be dominant. And one thing you can completely forget is the moment you tell a woman what you truly feel about her, be it sexually or romantically, she will completely lose interest, because then you fall completely into her. The submissiveness is complete. She knows she has control over you. The dominance is shifted to her frame. And that's why I say, in each interaction, think about whether it's dominant or whether it's submissive. And the moment you forget it, and you just react the way you naturally react, you instantly lose. And I wouldn't tell you this if I hadn't tested it. I didn't test it consciously. It was just more like a pattern recognition. from maybe 50 women that I talked to in the last few months, and real life talk, like literally talking to them. And also, there's another factor, of course, which you cannot forget. There's a lot of crazy women out there right now. They're doing really crazy shit. And when I mean crazy shit, it's like they're dating being several dudes, and it's absolutely crazy what's going out there right now. And sometimes I'm like, just like, maybe I should just geomax. Maybe I should just go to the Philippines and not have to worry about all of this shit. Or you can go the non-duality way, which is literally letting go of everything. Now, letting go of everything does have an interesting aspect to it, which the mind cannot comprehend, is that there is a point where maybe this letting go will make you lose a fear, or make you change your life path in a bit way that you cannot really predict what's going to happen. Like, two of my major life changes, which was van life and becoming a tantra masseur, came from sitting in silence, in emptiness. Without having done that, I probably would have not been doing van life or tantra massage. And those were big changes in my life, really big changes. Yeah. And sometimes it's good to know exactly what you like and what you want. For example, I had this Italian girl in my van. We didn't sleep with each other, but we cuddled. And even just the cuddling, having the sliding door open here, looking on the ocean, even just the cuddling was amazing. She turned out in the end to not even be a good friend, or not very much invested. But the cuddling itself was amazing at that moment. And it was so good that I kind of like said to myself, hey, this is one of the best moments I've probably had in my life. Like, and I think for us men, it's a bit strange. Like, if you're not naturally dominant, then every single act of dominance is an effort. And it's really a big question mark whether you should be exerting that effort all the time in order just to be attractive. It's bizarre. It's a little bit bizarre. But I also believe that women nowadays require more dominance, and that's why they love narcissists even more than in the past, because they've become more independent and more masculine themselves. They have a lot of energy, they experience a lot of sexuality, there's a lot of competition. So in order for you to break through all of these barriers, you kind of have to be more dominant than you used to be. And this dominance is also, and this is where Owens is absolutely right, is it's not an overinvestment, whether it be money or gestures. Those are all submissive. They will backfire. So like, if you invite her to dinner, if you do this, if you do that, if you drive her long hours, that doesn't work. And it doesn't work not because she doesn't like nice guys. It works because it signals submissiveness to her. And like I